Hi, my name is Katia Rodriguez.
And my name is Catherine.
And thank you for tuning into Youthine Live. This week's topic is about health, flu shots, and the common cold. If you are new to our show, Youthine Live is a weekly television show that airs every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Channel 76 in San Francisco. Today we have our guest, Ms. Boyer-Shu.
Well, a little bit background story about Ms. Boyer-Shu is that she's a registered nurse who works at the Wellness Center at George Washington, or George Washington High School. She was born and raised in Japan, and she came into the U.S. when she was 8 years old. She told us that she came into nursing throughout the back door. So she got her nursing degree at Columbia University, and then she mastered in public health at Johns Hopkins University.
Ms. Boyer-Shu worked at the San Francisco Unified School District for a total of 27 years. Before Washington, she worked in many different elementary and middle schools, but she didn't start working in schools until later in her career. In the beginning, she worked in hospitals in Baltimore and Boston. After getting her master's degree, she worked in Thailand with Cambodian refugees. After she returned to the United States, she worked as an administrator of home care agencies and for a couple years taught at Lady College in Oakland. Let's find out more about her work and how she became a nurse.
So, to start off, how are you today?
Oh, thanks, Catherine. I'm fine. I hope you two are well. Katia, you sound like you have a little bit of a cold.
A little bit, but I'm glad you're here to tell me how to prevent that.
Thanks.
So, my first question for you is why did you choose to be an RN, and what prompted you to become a nurse?
Oh, so thanks for asking that. I went into nursing through the back door, and what I mean by that is when I was going to high school, I actually wanted to become a newspaper writer. So I went to a university and studied writing, but after a couple of years, I needed a break. So I just took a year off and wanted to get any old job. And I looked in the newspapers, and I found a job as a nursing assistant in a nursing home. So I started that work, and at first, I wasn't sure about it, and then I became really, really attracted to the profession. And the main reason was the nurse, who was my head nurse, who graduated from Yale, was so impressive. She was so respected by everyone, the patients, the families, the doctors. And I just so admired the way she was, how kind she was, what a difference she made, that I thought maybe I could do this too. So I got my nursing degree at Columbia, like you mentioned, and I started working in hospital in Boston. I wanted to work overseas, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later.
So what type of nurse are you, and what kind of nursing have you done in your career?
So I'd like to think that all my career, my entire nursing career, I've been a public health nurse. And what I mean by that is, bottom line, I think I focus on prevention. Because, so many of the things that people are harmed by in the United States in terms of diseases have a lot to do with things we can prevent. So as examples, I'm talking about, smoking cigarettes, drinking too much alcohol, not eating well, not exercising enough. So I'm hoping that in every day that I work, I influence people in preventing diseases later on.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
Thanks, Catherine.
So, moving on, what level of education do you need to become a nurse, like master degrees or what type of?
So that little clip we saw at the beginning talked about the bachelor's degree, and it is really important to emphasize that it's important to start your nursing background with at least an associate degree, but preferably a bachelor's degree. Then, if you can go on and you can get a master's degree in nursing, for example, I have one in public health, but you can get a master's in nursing, a doctorate in nursing, and with each level of education, what do you think happens with the salary?
The more time you study, the better you get paid.
You bet. That is true.
So I also want to remind you guys, if you guys have any questions for us or for Ms. Boyer-Shu, make sure you call in the number below.
Ooh.
So
please call.
What are the different types of shots teens need, and is it too late to get any of these shots?
Okay, so teens need various shots. I'm going to focus on 4 of them. So one of them is called the flu shot. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. Another one is called the meningococcal shot. That's hard to say, but a severe disease that I really want to emphasize. The third one is called Tdap. And the fourth one is the HPV vaccine, which I'm really emphasizing in my work with teenagers. So did you want to know a little bit more about each?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay, so the flu shot prevents the flu. That's pretty simple. You need one every year. The Tdap stands for tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis, 3 different diseases. With one shot you can prevent, and many people know of it as Tdap. So Tdap you should get when you're about 11 or 12, and then every 10 years thereafter.
I remember that one.
You do?
Yeah.
Good. That means you got it. The third one, the meningococcal disease, the meningococcal vaccine prevents meningococcal disease. This is a severe, very, very severe illness. I have spoken to many parents in my life who lost their children. First, the disease just presented as high fever and feeling really, really lousy. But then within 2 to 3 days, they were in the hospital. Within a few more days, they had to have their legs or arms or both amputated because their flesh had died. And even with that, they still couldn't stop the progression of the disease and ultimately died. So I really, really want all young people to get their meningococcal shot. And then the final one, the HPV, stands for human papillomavirus. And this is a condition that has to do with cervical cancer for girls and also cancer for guys as well. And if you get it, do you know how many you need to be fully protected?
Yes, 3.
How do you know that?
Because I just got my last one yesterday.
Awesome. That's
I'm not
right.
even sure if I have them yet.
So, in any case, if you haven't gotten them, the person you should go to is your primary care provider to check your records. And let's just say you got 1 or 2 already, but you haven't finished. You don't have to start from scratch. Just go to your provider and finish out the series of 3. You just need 3 for full protection.
Yeah, well, thank you for educating us on shots. I was quite impressive about the fact that you gave us like the amputating thing. That was quite impressive for me. Like honestly, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and I've seen some pretty devastating conditions, pretty devastating, I guess you can call fallout from not getting vaccines. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I have worked in other countries. One of the places I worked at was actually at the border of Thailand and Cambodia. I worked in a large refugee camp. And in that refugee camp were over 160,000 Cambodians. Many of them were children and babies. And sadly, when I was working in the pediatric ward, you know, we had what we called a tetanus table. So what that meant was a table a little bit larger than this, where we had babies in little bassinets, and all of the babies on that table had tetanus, which means that their bodies were very, very rigid and sometimes had convulsions because of getting this disease. And we tried so hard, but half of the babies actually died. So I care a lot about prevention, and my experience in that refugee camp certainly has influenced me for the rest of my life.
So I will, flu shot.
So I know I really can't take a pill. And it's so difficult for me to do it. I've known since you work at my high school,
Right.
and you tried it with me, but I really can't. What are the different ways to prevent the common cold without taking a pill?
Nice. Okay, so thank you for appealing to my desire to prevent things. So colds are actually pretty common. And Katya, you're not alone in not liking to take pills. So just staying physically healthy. During the winter season, it's so important to wash your hands. Yes. When you cough, to cough into your sleeve or something other than into the air. And also eating healthy and getting enough sleep so important. I often joke with my teens about vitamin S.
What is that?
Vitamin S is not about that other S. It's about sleep. And I find that most
I
teenagers...
get tons of that.
You do? I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because most teenagers are not getting enough
Yeah.
sleep, and you need at least 7, preferably 8 or 9.
Or 10.
Yeah, or 10. So those are some of the ways to prevent yourself from catching colds. But when you do, just drinking lots of fluids and just taking it easy. If you're healthy already and your immune system is good, you'll be over it in a couple of days.
Wow. So I want to talk about more about the misconceptions about the flu vaccine.
Sure.
So can a flu shot give you the flu?
No. The flu shot can't give you the flu because it's not made with live flu virus. So sometimes people think that the shot gave them the flu because they were coming down with the flu when they were getting the shot.
Right.
It took a few days to incubate, so they come down with it after a day or two and they think, darn, the shot gave me the flu. Can't happen.
Wait, but isn't the flu shot the one who gave you like a fever or a small fever?
Well, that's a good point, Catherine. Sometimes a shot can give you a low fever, like maybe 99, maybe 100, so therefore you might feel warm. So every time you get a flu shot, usually you will get some advice right afterwards, and one of them is to take a Tylenol or something over the counter if you get really, really warm. But it is not the same as coming down with a disease.
What about, do we really need like a flu shot every year?
Absolutely. You need a flu shot every year. And let me ask you the question. Do you want to protect the people around you?
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
like, do you live with a family?
Yes, I
Do you have people that are maybe like little that you meet every now and then? Little tiny
my
people.
little cousins,
There you go. And how about older people like senior citizens?
my uncle.
Okay. So when you get the flu shot, here's what you're doing. Not only are you protecting yourself, you're also protecting the people that you love, who you come in contact with. If these little ones or old ones get flu, sometimes get really, really sick. So you're protecting a whole bunch of people by getting the flu shot.
So what are some serious reactions to the flu vaccine, if there is any?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you asked me about flu vaccine. Flu vaccine is one of the safest vaccines ever. So you might, other than getting the fever, maybe you might get a little soreness at the area where you got the shot. Put an ice pack on it, and also you should have been asked some questions by the doctor before giving you the shot or the nurse. Like, for example, have you ever had a bad reaction to flu vaccine? If you had a really, really bad reaction in the past, they probably won't give it to you.
Oh, it looks like we have a call.
Oh, cool.
Hi, you're speaking to Katya and Catherine and Miss Boyer-Shu. What is your question?
I called up lately. What's the best way to end a cold? Possible presentation, test. Thank you.
I think that person just sneezed at the end of the question. That's great. Were they asking how to prevent a cold?
I'm not sure.
So, sorry, caller, but we didn't quite hear your question very clearly. But if I can maybe paraphrase what I thought I heard, it was that how do you prevent a cold? And then you sneezed at the end of that question, which was perfect. So, like I said earlier, do everything you can to stay healthy. What does that mean? So, like, for example, are you getting enough? What's vitamin S?
Sleep!
There you go. At least, what's a recommended number of hours of sleep for teens?
I think it's 8 to 10.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
Hovering
I get
around.
more than that.
Yeah, some people need even more.
School should start later.
How about let's talk about nutrition. Well, what do you think about skipping breakfast?
Bad. I do that though.
Yeah. So, in high schools in San Francisco, we're lucky. We get something called grab and go, which is a breakfast you can get on the fly, and usually around 9:30. So that's something to think about. Even grabbing a really healthy drink before you go out of the house or a piece of fruit is still better than nothing. What do you think about soda?
It's
bad.
really bad.
Yeah.
So much sugar.
Yeah, it's a lot of sugar. And what's a healthier beverage?
Water.
You bet. So you see, you got a lot of good ideas. Talk to me about exercise. What's the benefit of exercise?
Keeps you healthy in shape, kind of.
Absolutely. So vigorous exercise, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, at least 5 times a week. What it does is not only does it help you with your body, makes your body healthier, it also actually helps your brain and your mood.
I was going to say that. I was like, does it help you emotionally
You
as well?
bet. You
That's
bet.
good. That's very good.
Yeah. So think about those 4 essentials.
Oh yeah. So now that we were talking about healthy, I just came up with the questions about the topic we were talking before about
Sure.
the flu shot.
Sure.
I also have asked myself, like, if you get a flu shot, will you get a flu like throughout the time you already have the shot?
So that's a great question. So a lot of people say, well, can the flu shot absolutely prevent the flu? No, and every season, every year, the flu shot is made specifically for the most severe kinds of flu traveling around the globe. So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of flu. So, like I said, it only prevents about maybe 3-4 of the severest form. So you might catch one of the milder ones. Here's the good news. You get flu vaccine, the chances are that if you catch the flu, your flu will be a lot milder. I'll give you an example. I got the flu vaccine this year like I do every year. But I got the flu. It lasted about 2 days. And if I hadn't, I bet you I would have been sick for a week.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm very curious if vaccinating someone twice provides added immunity.
Okay, so vaccinating someone twice, and you're probably talking about different kinds of
Yes.
vaccines? Okay, so each vaccine has a different schedule or recommendation about how many doses you need and at what ages you need them. So, for example, flu, we all know you should get it once a year or around the winter time, you should get one. Meningococcal, you should get one around the age of 11, 12, and then you should get another one. So you should get a total of 2 before college. Tdap, we know it's every 10 years. Polio, you should get the polio vaccine when you're little, and you need 5 of those. So again, the point is, go back to your primary care doctor or nurse and make sure you get the right number of shots and that you complete the series. Tell me again how many you need of HPV?
3.
You got it.
So, and also, this is one of my last questions for me.
Sure.
Is it true that getting a flu vaccine can make you more susceptible to other respiratory viruses?
No, not to my knowledge. As far as getting the flu vaccine, I do know for a really important fact, if you have asthma, so that makes you, by the way, having asthma makes you susceptible to having respiratory conditions and catching things. It's really important you get flu vaccine. So I think that getting flu vaccine every year protects you from getting more serious respiratory conditions.
If you are sick, let's say I'm sick, what should I do to help prevent that others do not get sick around me?
Okay, so here's the thing. Katya, I know you're a really serious student and you really like going to school and you're great at doing that. But what if you have a fever of 102 and you're sneezing all over the place? What do you think you should do?
Go home.
You bet. Go home and stay home until your fever's down and you feel better and you're not coughing all the time.
How long do you think a fever would take for it to go back to normal?
Oh, that depends it depends on the condition that's causing the fever. So anything over 102, you really are sick, you should stay home. And if you keep getting worse and worse, I think it's important to check in with your primary care clinic or doctor and make sure that you're getting the right treatment.
Okay, so today we covered some steps to becoming a registered nurse and how to stay healthy during flu season. And I know you taught us a lot of things.
Thank you so much for all this information that you just gave us. It was quite impressive, like most of the things you just told us.
Yeah, some things I didn't even do too. So it was really nice for you to be here, and I want to thank you for coming to our show and for allowing us to learn more about health in general.
Well, Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, Catherine. It's lovely to see you, Katya. And then Trayvon, who's in the back, hello to you as well.
Yeah, I would love to ask you more questions, and but we are kind of like running out the time,
Sure.
But we would love to have you like come back and do another show.
Sure. I'd love to come back and talk to you about STDs, STIs, and about birth control, all that stuff. So anytime, I'm happy to come back. Thanks again.
That would be a good topic for another time. And I want to really thank you again for coming. If you want, you guys can check out our website on www.youthlinemedia.org for anything Youthline, if you want to be a guest on our show.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning into Youthline Live. And my name is Catherine.
And my name is Katya Rodriguez.
See you next week.